So after 5 years since the last meeting, Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje are running it back and the stakes are higher this time. They will be competing for the vacant BMF title and likely also earn a #1 contender spot to challenge for the next title shot. The lightweight division is filled with some of the most exciting top fighters. Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje certainly fall into this list. We also have guys like Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira who are also just as exciting. They all have fought each other and every single fight has been a banger. There has not been one boring fight between all of them. You can list them all right now. Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje versus Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler versus Dustin Poirier. All 3 of those fights have been absolutely amazing. To quote Teddy Atlas, these guys have PhDs in making exciting fights. Both of these guys come to bring it every single time. People are saying that this fight could potentially be the fight of the year, and I can absolutely understand why that is. However, for the potential that this fight has, there hasn't been major promo for this fight, but at the same time, they don't need it. Just like Dustin said, we already know what we're getting out of this fight. There's no need to really sell it, and the public already has a clear idea of what they're going to get. So in that case, I don't think I have to waste so much time explaining the significance and the magnitude of this fight. Let's just hop right into it. Oh yeah, and another thing, have you guys also seen how similar these two are? There's literally a list of accomplishments that show that both fighters have achieved relatively the same things throughout their entire career. It's the battle of the Austins, everybody. So the last time that these two fought was in 2018. It was a 4-round scrap where they went back and forth, but Poirier was able to pull off the TKO victory. Ever since then, both guys have improved a lot, but I believe Poirier has made bigger strides than Gaethje. I think Dustin has had more championship experience against tough competition, and that's very big and important. He's been more active. He's fought guys like Max Holoway, Conor McGregor, Charles Oliveira, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Eddie Alvarez, and so much more. These guys are some of the most elite fighters in the world, and whether or not he wins against all of these guys, he has shown a ton of improvement and resistance every single time he's out there. When you go through fights like that over and over again, there's no way you can't improve in some way as a fighter physically and mentally. He's had quality fights against quality opponents. I also think that Dustin has performed better than Gaethje against guys that they have mutually fought, minus Khabib. Yes, they both lost, and it probably doesn't matter as much because MMA math usually never works out and styles make fights. However, what we can take away is how they reacted under the championship lights. When Poirier fought Oliveira, I felt like he was more poised and calm than Gaethje. It's just Poirier wasn't able to deal with the pace and the grappling of Oliveira, whereas I felt like Justin Gaethje was very emotional in that fight. I remember the lead up to that fight. Justin was talking about how Oliveira used to be a quitter, and it looked like that was what he was trying to do in the fight. He was trying to make Oliveira quit. It looked like he was purposely straying away from a game plan and just started loading up on every single shot, trying to push him to that point of quitting. And I understand that that is what Gaethje usually likes to do, but he was loading up so badly to the point where at one point during the fight he was sacrificing balance. There was a moment where he swung a punch so hard that he fell to the ground trying to take Oliveira's head off. I felt like Charles needed to work more to break Dustin, whereas Justin, because of his foolishness, it led to him getting finished. And Justin has made improvements as well. It's not like he stayed the same, but I don't think they're as impactful as the changes that Dustin has made. Dustin has shown to be able to compete with a variety of styles. He's fought Max Holoway, who's a high volume puncher. He's fought Conor McGregor, who's a sniper. He's fought Michael Chandler, who's a brawler, and he's had success against all of these guys. Whereas Gaethje, since their last fight, has fought James Vick, Cowboy, and Edson Barboza, and those guys are good, but they're not great. He beat Michael Chandler in a crazy fight and Rafael Fiziev in a close decision. I still think that Gaethje has somewhat of the same identity as a fighter with just some minor tweaks. However, it seems bad, but it's not entirely bad, and I'll explain why. So even though these two are similar in some aspects, what they do best is very different. For the Diamond himself, he's got some of the best hands in MMA. I've already mentioned this before. Poirier is arguably the best boxer in MMA, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan or that he strictly has great punching technique. No, that's part of it, because if you look at the way that Poirier hits the bag, you can see the proper mechanics and fundamentals in his punching technique. Everything is always nice and tight. There's no wasted movement. He rarely loops his punches to the point where it becomes telegraphic. He knows how to set up punches and put punches together. He knows how to enter range, counterpunch, use the jab, head movement, etc. Secondly, Poirier is a very high volume striker. He loves to throw boxing combos in his fights. He's a very heavy-handed fighter. When he has you up against the fence, that's where he can really have his best work. This is where you usually see him tee off on guys and utilize proper shot selection to either hurt his opponent or unlock the finish. And he never rushes. He'll establish position, set you up, and then he'll go. He's also not putting his all into every single punch. He'll change the velocity and the intensity of his punches. He'll touch, and once he finds the opening, then he'll start to attack and open up. Thirdly, Poirier has good striking defense. Whenever you see Poirier up against the fence, you can see him blocking punches very well. And it's not that simple. It's not that he's just putting his hands up and being stationary. No, if you're thinking that, then you're wrong. If you pay close attention, you can see that Poirier usually rolls with the punch when he blocks. He'll never completely take the impact on his arms or gloves. This also allows him to have proper weight transfer to potentially counter with hard shots, the same way he put Michael Chandler down. He also uses head movement to get off the line. His footwork, where he's light on his toes, bouncing around, is pretty solid as well. But he is hittable at times because he can make the mistake of being in the pocket for too long and he can get caught on the center line. The point is, he never usually gets hit clean. Lastly, his grappling skills. Because Poirier loves to strike a lot during his fights, it makes people forget about the fact that he's a BJJ black belt with solid wrestling. He loves to jump guillotine a lot. He's got good chokes, control, sweeps, and much more. Khabib was the closest to being submitted by Poirier, and it just shows that he is a high-level grappler. If he decides to use it, it could get dangerous. For Mr. Highlight himself, the man that pretty much can't breathe out of his nose, he has some nasty leg kicks. His shins are so dense and hard that once he lands clean, it doesn't take much of it to destroy your legs. He was using them very well when they first fought, and it's evident that that is one of his biggest weapons. Someone said that Justin Gaethje is the Mike Tyson of leg kicks, and honestly, I don't think there's any other better way to put it. Secondly, Gaethje has good pocket work. It's not quite inside work where you're in the clinch, but just in between the boxing range and the clinching. When the fight is in almost the clinching range, Gaethje has some devastating uppercuts and hooks. Usually when you clinch up with him and then you start to separate, that's where he starts to tee off with those uppercuts and hooks. He uses them very well. He'll enter range with the jab and shoot an uppercut behind it, or if his opponent commits, then he'll throw an uppercut and hook combination. These two punches flow together very nicely, and Gaethje takes full advantage of it. Thirdly, every strike that Gaethje throws is 100% with his power. Now, why would this be a strength? Wouldn't this be a bad thing? Well, yes, but it could also be a good thing. Trevor Whitman is always telling him to take some steam off of his shots every single time, and it's clearly a habit that he has. It's pretty much who he is as a fighter. The fact that he's always coming forward and every single time he opens up, it's with bad intentions. If one of those land, then you could be in trouble. All it takes is just one right on the chin in MMA. And especially with how both guys fight, the deeper you get into the fight, the more you get tired, the more you become less sharp, and it takes one that you don't see to just connect on your chin, and that could be it. Lastly, his ability to close distance. Justin Gaethje now has better tactics to close distance. One of the changes that you now see is that he uses level changes, feints, and stance switches to close distance. Whereas before, if you watch Gaethje fight, you would see him lead with power a lot to try to close distance. He tries to create chaos to get himself to where he wants to be, and once he's there, he starts to open up. Bonus strengths for both men are that they are both very powerful, tough, relentless, conditioned, and have a ton of heart. These two are so similar with their traits, but that's why it's so exciting and that's why everyone is tuning in. For Poirier to win, he has to attack every single time Gaethje opens up with a leg kick. Dustin is most likely not going to switch to a kick-heavy fighting style and start checking kicks. He'll most likely just hollow out and pull his leg out. However, Dustin doesn't have great kicks overall. He can't roam around on the outside and expect to outpoint Gaethje to a decision. At some point, Gaethje is going to bring it. So for him, he's going to have to take a few kicks on the thigh or the calf, but once that happens, he has to come forward with combinations. But another thing to consider is that they are in an open stance. So ideally, Poirier will have a much better time turning his leg inward to check the inside kick. Secondly, use your wrestling. I know, this is meant to be the fight of the year. No one wants to see wrestling. No one wants to see these guys hugging each other and wasting time on the clock. Well, guess what? Ain't nobody trying to end up like Michael Chandler as well. So be smart, use your wrestling, try to slow down Gaethje's engine, and you'll be in the right spot. Justin Gaethje is a D1 wrestler, but we all know he really ain't. Come on. Get him up against the fence and rough him up a little bit. Lastly, body work. Dustin needs to attack the body in this fight. He's not a great body puncher, but he has to be in this fight. Gaethje has the mentality of taking one and giving two. He's not going to stop mentally. So if that's the case, force his body to physically give up on him. If that happens, his activity decreases, the quality of his strikes decreases, and the fight becomes easier for you. Bonus key for Poirier is to move and not engage into too many exchanges where he's trading with Gaethje. Move your head and your feet and use his aggression against him, similar to when he fought Michael Chandler. Don't influence the idea of you go and then I go. Gaethje and Chandler actually have a lot of similarities in closing distance with haymakers. They like to switch stances and throw bombs coming forward, and that takes up a lot of energy. So don't get into all of that, and instead be smart, and when it's time for you to open up, go ahead and do what you need to do. For Justin Gaethje, you gotta set up those leg kicks. Throwing naked leg kicks is likely going to be a bad idea because Poirier knows that they're coming and Gaethje loads up on them as well. In his fight against Fiziev, whenever Justin Gaethje threw a naked leg kick, Fiziev was able to read them. Gaethje needs to throw his hands and feint to land those kicks. Again, in the times where he did land leg kicks in the Fiziev fight, he was using subtle stance switches and level changes to disguise his kicks. He doesn't want to leave himself vulnerable because once you open up, you're in a bad position. You're standing on one leg essentially, so you gotta be careful. Secondly, stay off of the cage. Justin Gaethje usually doesn't move his head a lot, or if he does, he usually ducks his head down. On top of that, Gaethje is not very effective when he's on the back foot. He's not a great counterpuncher, he doesn't set a lot of traps, and it just wouldn't benefit him to win the fight at all. He's just giving Poirier options to either open up, shoot for takedowns, or hold him up against the fence. Thirdly, use your jab. Gaethje needs to land the jab for everything to fall into place. He used it very well late in the fight against Fiziev, and you can see how much it made a difference for him. A good right hand will take you around the block, but a good jab will take you around the world. If he can land the jab, it'll possibly force Poirier to reset and not be reluctant to pressure forward. And then once it lands, start working behind it. Throw the uppercut or the hook. Bonus key for Gaethje, if he has Poirier hurt, do not let him recover. Dustin Poirier statistically usually grows into the fight when it goes longer. Just like Gaethje, Poirier is also tough and mentally strong. He's essentially his equal, and if you have a window of opportunity to finish the fight, put the pace on him and push him back. Don't let him push you back. Most importantly, he has to be composed and measured while doing this. Or use your wrestling to try to take the fight to the ground, especially when Poirier is up against the fence. Chandler did it when he had Poirier up against the fence, so there's an opportunity there. But then again, I highly doubt that he's going to do this. But he did try to wrestle a bit in the Fiziev fight, so we'll see. So for my official prediction, I'm going to take Dustin Poirier by TKO in the 3rd round. Both guys, if they stick to a game plan and they don't get reckless throughout the fight, they can beat each other. However, with how both guys have been commenting about this fight, I reckon it's probably going to be a proper war. But I do think Poirier is the much better MMA fighter overall, and he's going to be much more intelligent in crucial parts of the fight compared to Justin Gaethje. And it's those little moments, little details that decide the fight, and Poirier has been there and he knows that. Poirier is also the cleaner fighter. His punches are much tighter and more accurate compared to Gaethje, who usually likes to throw more looping shots. Gaethje is a different fighter, but I don't think he's that different. I would love to see both guys go at it, but for the sake of their health, I wouldn't mind if the fight doesn't play out like how everyone is thinking. These guys could literally develop early dementia if they go balls to the walls the entire fight. And that is it, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to what I have to say, and let me know, who do you have winning the fight tonight? Dustin Poirier or Justin Gaethje? Who wins and why? Drop a comment and let me know in the comment section down below. Now, if you guys enjoy content that is related to combat sports, please drop a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel down below. That would be greatly appreciated. Please follow my Twitter to see my opinions and rants about combat sports. And other than that, it's been Steven, signing out. Peace.